Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I'm David Beckett. I'm a pitch coach, and I'm here to ensure that your ideas have a voice. And I've been doing this with startups for the last 4 years. I've coached over 550 startups, and between them, they raised a load of money. I never say that's because of me, but, well, every raise started with a pitch, so I'm somewhere in there. And also been working with all of these companies. What I noticed in some of the presentations today, that here in Ikea, you're looking at ways to keep things shorter and sharper. And all of these companies are beginning to realize that long PowerPoint presentations are not necessarily the way to go. What could be better is to have a short pitch and a conversation afterwards so that people get the message, they understand what the issues are, and then they can get on to the next thing. And luckily, they call me to help them with that. Now, I want to just introduce myself. Yes, this is me. 1 or 2 years ago. It's in 1992. I have to say it slowly because I can't believe it's so long ago. And the reason this photograph is in black and white is because that tie in 1992 was really colorful. If it was in color, the beamer would explode, I tell you. But what you see here is on the right-hand side, you see the company Canon. And I worked for Canon for 16 years. I went from being a marketing assistant to a country director, everything in between. And in my first weeks of joining Canon, I was incredibly lucky because I was forced to learn how to present. My boss was a guy called Lance Miller, and Lance had worked in advertising for 20 years. So Lance was Mr. Hey Wow. He could make a small mouse look like an elephant, you know? He was Mr. Pitch. Me, I was completely shy. I'd never worked in an office. In the first 2 months of working there, I hardly said a word. And I think Lance was looking at me one day and thinking, this guy is basically useless. We either have to get him out of himself or get him out, one or the other. So let's see if he can present. So we would have people come to the office and he'd say, Beckett, you go and tell the story. We'd have exhibitions. You go and tell that story 100 times. I did trainings and coachings. For some reason, it kind of landed with me. And over the next 16 years, I learned the value of that crash course in presentation. Because what I learned over the next 16 years is that in a big company, people who can present well are overrated. And people who can't present well, they're underrated. Now, there's a brutal outcome of this specific skill, and that is that people listen more to people who can present well. And they listen a bit less to people who can't. Now, is that fair? I think you can debate that. Surely what matters is your ability to deliver value to the company on a day-by-day, hour-by-hour basis. But we get to see very small parts of your work. It tends to be in these short presentations, short pitches. And so people are kind of judged in those big moments. So I got a kind of a supercharger for my career by learning how to do this at the very beginning. Now, over these 24 years, actually it's 25 now, right? Over these 25 years, many things have changed. You know, business has changed, technology has changed, the way we live our lives. One thing has never changed, and that is the ability of one person in front of an audience to change their thinking and therefore change their action. And as we get more digital in the future, this will only become a more essential skill because nobody has more time. Nobody wants it more complex. They want it quicker, they want it shorter and simpler. So this ability to tell your story in short, sharp pitches could be an absolutely essential skill. Now, the thing that bothers me at night is what if there are talented people with great ideas that could change lives and they're not heard? Now, changing lives is a big statement, huh? It's a big statement. You might not be working, you might think you're not working on something that could change life. But for example, the meeting app or the travel services that you just heard described, you know, that's going to be used by a lot of people. It's going to save a lot of people a lot of time. But what if that idea had never been heard? Have you ever had an idea and nobody listened? It's a horrible feeling. I've had that feeling myself. I don't want anybody to have it. It burns you inside when you've got something good inside you and you can't get people to hear it. My mission is to make sure that everyone's got the tools to be able to get their story out there so that you can have your ideas heard and people judge you on the idea not on the pitch. So I believe great ideas need a voice. That's what we're here for today. Now, as was mentioned, this is a do workshop, not just a think session. So when you see this sign, you're going to know that I'm going to ask you to do something. And when we do it, it's just going to be very simple. You're just going to need to write something down and then find somebody in the room and say it out loud. Don't worry, you don't have to come up here. It's okay. I'm not going to pick on anybody. But what we're going to do, and it's going to get very noisy, but we're just going to try it. I'm going to get you to do a couple of exercises where you just team up with one other person, say something out loud, get some feedback. Okay. Now, the first action step actually needs no preparation whatsoever. And by the way, this one's going to start in about 30 seconds. You'll see the clock ticking. And I'm going to ask you to pitch yourself in 30 seconds, ideally to somebody you don't know. Now, the easiest thing is maybe turn to the person behind you. If you can't find somebody you don't know, just do it with somebody you do know. But just pitch yourself in 30 seconds. And you're going to see the clock ticking. When the 30 seconds are up, you have to stop. You can't keep going for 33 seconds. 30 seconds is the limit. So I will just shout as loud as I can, because you'll make a lot of noise. Please stop. So look out for the clock. You'll hear a beep, beep, beep. That means it's time up. So just for example, if you two gentlemen were pitching, then it'll be 30 seconds. You would pitch yourself to this gentleman. The clock will stop. Beep, beep, beep. I will reset it, and then you pitch back to him. And that's it. That's all we're going to do. There's no other instructions, in case you're wondering. Yeah, I lost them on the plane here. Sorry about that. So let's do it. Now, just before you start standing up. So this is going to be a bit noisy. Just put up with it, all right? Stand up. Find somebody to work with. If you haven't got somebody, put a hand up. If you haven't got a partner, put your hand up. Yep. There's somebody down the front here. This lady here. Find somebody. You can always just sit in with someone else. Everyone teamed up. Wait for the clock. Okay. Away we go. 30 seconds. Go. Two, one, and stop. 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 Just listen up. Listen up, ladies and gentlemen. 30 seconds goes real quick, right? Okay. I'm going to reset the clock. Now the other person pitch back. Okay? Here we go. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and away you go. That's it. Stop. Take a seat. Let me tell you what we've been doing here. Take your seats. Guys, the pitch is over, okay? Pitch is over. Shh. All right. I have a promise for you. I have a promise for you. I promise you that this is the last dumb exercise we'll do during this session. Because it is kind of dumb, right? Because I said to you, pitch to somebody you don't know. But if you don't know who they are, how would you know what they're interested in? So how would you know what to say? Now, my guess is you probably spoke something about maybe your work, maybe where you're from, family, anyone? Pets? Anyone talk about their cats? Yeah. Anyone talk about their hobbies? Yeah. And maybe hopes and dreams. Oh, yes. But the point is that if you don't know who you're presenting to, you don't know which of these different things are relevant to that person. But this is how most people are pitching. What they think is, I have a pitch. What's the story I need to tell? Let's create the slides. But the first thing in any pitch is to get your mind into the audience. Think to yourself, who are they? What do they care about? What are they driven by? What bothers them? And then how can I take the pieces of all my potential parts of the story and tell them a story that resonates with what they're interested in? The second thing is, I didn't tell why you're pitching. I didn't give you an objective. I didn't say, make yourself sound really professional, or make yourself sound really interesting outside of work, or something like that. I just said pitch. Once again, this is how most people are pitching and presenting. If I look back on my time in Canon, I made over 1,000 presentations. Most of those presentations, I simply delivered the information. I wish I'd asked those people to do something. I wish I'd had it clear in my mind, as a result of this presentation, I want these people to do this on a Monday morning. So the audience and the objective are the two things that can guide you with what content to say. I have this a lot. When people are getting close to finalizing their pitch, they say, yeah, we're nearly there, but should we say this or should we say that? And I always say to them, who's the audience? What do they care about? And what's the objective? What do you want these people to do as a result of these pitch? And that person asking me the question always, without fail, finds their own answer. Because the beacons of audience and objective will guide you a lot in any type of pitch. If you know that, then you know what you should pitch. Now, what does it take to be a good pitcher? You see, people think that it's all about inspiration. You saw 6 5-minute presentations earlier on. It's pretty difficult to give a presentation in 5 minutes. My guess is they didn't just stand up here and get inspired. My guess is there was a lot of work involved. You know, there's about 0.1% of people who can just stand on stage and go, ta-da! For the rest of us, it's just work. It's just work. It's just a process. You just need to follow a set of steps and you can make a great pitch. You see, I believe that anyone can learn how to pitch. Now, of course, some people's character is a little bit more suited to this task of presenting. But I can guarantee you that every single person in this room can, as a minimum, make a good professional pitch. You just need to do the work. But to do the work, you need some tools. Now, I do whole day workshops and all kinds of things, but I figured, okay, let's not give them everything. Now, this is actually the model of my full day workshops. I'm going to share this with you in an app later, so you can get the app. I will tell you about that at the very end. It's completely free. You get this information and you get a 5-minute movie just to explain it. There could be a quick set of tips for you. There's a whole bunch of other stuff in the app. But what I've decided to do today is give you my 3 best pitch tools ever. Really? Okay. So it's a good job you came along. Okay. So the first one is, how do you create your storyline? How do you know what you're going to say? And my advice is to stop and don't open PowerPoint. You see, this is the problem that we face. And I did this for 15 years in Canon. In the 16th year, I started doing it differently. What happens is we think, I've got a presentation, let's make the slides. But this causes you to hit roadblocks at every turn. Let me explain why. Imagine you're working on this slide and you look at this text and you think to yourself, should this text be 32 point or 36 point? Should it be bold or not bold? Should I underline it, just like the top headline? Or maybe I shouldn't. Maybe the background should be blue or green. I'm not sure. That black and white photograph, is that the right one? Didn't I change that recently? Etc. These are important questions about your slides, but they're nothing to do with building your storyline. And what happens is, as soon as you start working on slides, you get caught up in 2 tasks. Create the storyline, make a slide to explain it. Create the storyline, make a slide to explain it. And you flip between these 2. It causes you to be 20 to 30% less efficient. And it becomes much more difficult to get the whole story clear, because you can never see the whole story in PowerPoint. Now, I've got a tool for you. It's a revolutionary tool that will save you 20 to 30% of time for every single pitch or presentation you make for the rest of your life. Guaranteed. I'm going to give you days of your life back right now. As I said, good job you came along. Okay, it's this. It's so revolutionary, it's called the Post-it note. Probably never heard of it. I don't know. Some people have used it. The Post-it notes, so simple is it? Use Post-it notes to get your story straight. Use Post-it notes to build your storyline. Let me show you what I mean. You see, it all starts with a brainstorm. Get the ideas out of your head. What could I tell about this subject? What could I tell them about this project? What could I tell them about this product? What could I tell them about Ikea as a company? And you think all the different things. What are the problems people are facing? How are we solving those problems? What's unique about our offer? And you brainstorm and get all those ideas out of your head. At a certain moment, you run out of ideas. You've got a load of stuff up on a flip chart. So then you need to take a step back and start looking at what's the big issues here? What are the big subjects that we want to talk about in this pitch? And you take out the duplicates because maybe you wrote down a few things twice. If you're doing it with a colleague, you probably got some of the same ideas. You look to yourself and think, we won't say this, but we'll definitely say that. And you start to cluster stuff around the big important stuff. And then at a certain moment, you organize around chapter headings. Let me show you what this might look like. The first brainstorm might look like this. Now, this is pretty rough. This is what your brain looks like when you open PowerPoint. Yeah, that's why it's so difficult to make a PowerPoint presentation, because we've got all kinds of ideas, but you need to go through the selection process of deciding, okay, what would be the three things I tell about the product? What would be the one big thing I tell them about Ikea's attitude to this issue? What would be the three big things that people need to know about this, the outcomes, or what they have to do, and so on? So you focus down on the key points, and at a certain moment, make a set of chapter headings like this. What you see is the orange post-its are the chapter headings, and the yellow ones are the content. Now, I happen to be addicted to the power of 3, as you'll find out later. So it could be 2 pieces of content per chapter, or 5, or 7, doesn't matter so much. But what matters is to organize your storyline. So you go through a process, brainstorm, adjust and select, and then organize your thoughts. If you do this before you open PowerPoint, this will save you so much time with the whole process of preparing your presentation. Now, I know this works because people send me pictures of them doing this, and they constantly tell me this really worked. If the only thing you do as a result of this talk is just try this out once, I would be extremely happy, because I know this will help you. Now, what are you going to talk about? So it's all very well to say brainstorm. What are you going to brainstorm? Now, I have a tool called the Pitch Canvas, and it's something I developed for startups, and I've developed a version for companies. You can get a copy of this. You can download it free, but I've got printed copies. I've got about 300 copies, so there's probably enough for pretty much anyone who wants one. And this has 11 blocks of content that you may think about in preparation for a pitch. So have a look at this, and this will help you with the content. But I just want to pick up on a couple of things that I would recommend that you focus down on in any pitch. The first one is, what's the problem you're solving? Now, you might think we're offering a product, or we've got a project, or we're working with a supplier. We don't want to talk about problems. We want to talk about solutions, right? But people respond very effectively to a problem that's highlighted. We as people are programmed to find solutions to problems. So as soon as you serve up a problem and then serve up a solution, it works really effectively. Now, I want to give you an example. It's not so much from your world, but I want to give you an example of a company called MobiPark. They have a parking app. So what MobiPark don't say is, they don't say, hi, parking's difficult. We've got an app for that. Because that would be really boring, right? What they actually talk about is, what does the parking problem result in? What they actually say is, can you imagine, on average, it takes people over 20 minutes to find a parking space. Now, what does that mean? It means that while that person is driving around looking for that elusive parking space, their family are sitting down to dinner without them again. Or their friends just got together, they're all having their first beer, the game that they've been looking forward to all season is just about to kick off, and meanwhile that person's driving around in circles trying to find that elusive parking space, and it drives them nuts. Now, that's a parking problem. That's a human problem. A problem that people can associate with. I don't have a car, but I've got young kids. I would really miss having dinner with them, so I associate with the problem. So think about how you can show that there is a problem that you're solving and serve that problem up. And that problem might be made up of lost time, people losing time, there's more cost, there's complex steps, maybe customers are irritated with the process, maybe you're losing customers, it's something about reputation. What is the problem that's being caused and how are you solving it? If you go from a problem to solution, that's so much more effective. You're more likely to grab people's attention than just going straight into a product explanation. Now, of course, you're going to talk about the product. How do you solve the problem? Maybe what's unique, what's special and new about the proposition is a piece of the backbone of pretty much any pitch. And what do you need from your audience? Be absolutely concrete on what you're looking for. Do you want a follow-up meeting? Do you want them to sign a contract? Do they need to place an order? Do you want them to visit your website and check something? What action could they take as a result of this pitch? And finally, put yourself on the line. Why do you believe that what you're proposing is a good idea? You know, people believe not in products, not in projects, they believe in people. So when a person that you believe says, I believe this is the exact right idea for you because, people go with it. So put yourself on the line and think, how can I tell my belief? Why do I think this is a good idea? Okay. Now, as I said, you'll have copies available after this talk of the pitch canvas, which covers more on these subjects and various others. What I'm here to do is not talk about the content of what you're going to pitch, because you know that better, is to give you a framework to find your story. Now, the next part of finding your framework is about the moment when you start speaking. You see, making the first word count and opening powerfully is the second tool that I want to give you today. I believe that the first 20 seconds buys attention. Actually, there's science that shows it's less than 20 seconds. You have milliseconds. But I think if people are expecting a presentation, they'll give you about 15 to 20 seconds. But you know how a lot of presentations start. And we saw with the 6 presentations today, they didn't start like this, which was great. But a lot of presentations start with, well, thanks very much. I guess it's my turn now. It's lovely to be here. The flight was a bit delayed, but so it's nice to see some familiar faces here in the room. And so I'm here to tell you about what we've been working on, because we've been working really hard. You won't believe how much, you know the picture. This happens because what people think about is the second thing they're going to say. The first thing they're going to say is that kind of ice-breaking thing. And we think we'll know what to say. But what happens is you stand up here, everyone's looking at you, and the mouth goes into overdrive because the brain isn't fully engaged. And so that if you're not planning from the first second what you're going to say, there's a chance you might say anything. So the key is to make a plan. Now, I want to give you a couple of examples of how this works. I think people are looking at 2 questions. They're asking themselves, is this person professional? And do I want or need to know more? They're thinking this consciously or subconsciously, because nobody's got all the time in the world, right? They need to find out, is this of interest? Yes, no? Okay, it isn't? Okay, next, because we're all busy. So these 2 questions, I want to give you some examples from startup world about how this is done. One is to quantify the problem. And I've explained about MobiPark. In short pitches, what they actually say is, can you imagine it takes over 20 minutes to find a parking space on average? And did you know that over 30% of exhaust fumes from cars are caused by people looking for parking? And can you imagine you will spend 1 year of your lives looking for a parking space? We're MobiPark, here to make parking cheaper, easier, and fun. So they give you 3 facts which you can't argue with. And they give you 3 things and they quantify the problem. They don't say parking's difficult. They say at 20 minutes, 30%, 1 year. So if you can quantify what you're offering, that really helps. If you can show the problem in numbers, or you can show the value you're delivering in numbers, this triggers something in the brain that says, okay, I can believe this. The next one I want to give you is being enthusiastic. Now, I want to give you a bit of context. This is a pitch on a demo day of 10 startups presenting. This guy is the 7th. These people have already seen 6, 7-minute pitches. So he needs to grab their attention. So see it in that context. Have a look at how it works.
How's everybody doing? Yeah, all right. My name is Gert van Vught, and I'm the CEO of Sustainer Homes. 6 months ago, my team and I came together on a shared vision for a revolutionary housing company. In the last 10 weeks, we've secured 165,000 euros worth of seed funding and are looking at a sales pipeline of over 1.5 million euros. Let me tell you how we've completely reinvented the home.
Now, of course, this depends on context. Supposing you go to a meeting with 2 people sitting at a desk, and you go in and you say, "Hi, how are you doing?" They're going to think you're a bit nuts, right? So, of course, show your enthusiasm. And everyone's got different ways of showing enthusiasm. What you see here is a guy who, it's almost like they've been holding him on out on the back of the stage. It's like, you can't go on, you can't go on. Okay, off you go. He's like, "Hi!" So he's just desperate to get out there. But, you know, everyone's got a different way of showing enthusiasm. It's also a cultural thing. You know, not everybody is the outgoing person. But if you watch, I'm not a big fan of saying go and watch Steve Jobs, but the one thing you can do is see a couple of his product launches where he didn't come on like that Steve Ballmer guy and say, "I love this company." What he actually did was he comes on very measured, a smile on his face, and he says, "We've got some really cool stuff to show you today." Now, that's a very different way of showing your enthusiasm. Everyone's got a different way. But just be committed to what you're doing from the first second. Not, "Well, so I guess it's my turn." It's "Hi, I've got an opportunity to tell you something great." Let's get yourself connected to the content. And finally, you can simply be professional. You know, just being professional will get people to listen. Let me give you an example.
Anything, any place, anytime. Why wait? My name is George, and I'm the CEO and one of the founders of Saddle. And our mission is to make your lives hassle-free by making sure that you can have anything delivered to you, any place, anytime.
Now, if you decode that opening, which is a dynamite 15 seconds, he says, "The promise." He doesn't say, "Hi, this is who I am, this is what I do, isn't it a lovely location?" He says, "Anything, any place, anytime. Why wait?" That's the promise. Then he introduced himself. "Hi, I'm George, and my team and I are on a mission." Oh, you're on a mission? Oh, we love missions. You're on a mission to make your lives hassle-free. It's not my life. It's not about me. It's about you. It's your life, hassle-free. And then he repeats the promise by giving you anything, any place, any time. And after those 15 seconds, our brains are going, "Tell me how, tell me how, tell me how." Because we want to know, right? Now, we're going to do a little exercise on this. And don't forget, the thing is about being professional, answering the question, is this person professional? And do I want or need to know more? So what I'm going to do is ask you to take a little time. Imagine you have a 5-minute pitch. And I must say, this is a little bit loose in terms of the content. Try and think a real situation that you might have to pitch in 5 minutes. A real situation where you're presenting a product, you're maybe presenting the company for the first time somewhere. Of course, everybody knows about Ikea, but you can always find a new angle. Or maybe you've got something which you've got an idea where you want to present to your bosses. So just think of a 5-minute pitch that you might have to make. And what I want you to do is write down your opening 3 sentences. Think about what would be the first thing you say. Okay. Now, if you've got paper and pen, that'll be fine. If you don't, you can use your phone. If you can also just think about it, whatever you like. I do recommend writing it down if you possibly can. So do write it down if you can. There's a bit of science that says if you write stuff down, it's more sticky than if you write it on your phone. But it doesn't matter. Just be practical in this situation. Write down on anything you like. So what we're going to do is we're going to do this, and then you're going to test it out like we did earlier on. And you're going to get 2 minutes to write it down, a whole 2 minutes, wow. And we'll do a little 5-minute exercise where you pitch to another person and they give you feedback on these opening 3 sentences. I'll tell you about the feedback in a moment, but for now, I'll give you the 2 minutes to prepare this short 3-sentence opening to your pitch. Just the first 3 sentences, okay? And while you do that, I'll play you a little bit of music. I'm going to be really kind and give you another 15 seconds. Just get your last thoughts down. Don't worry, it doesn't have to be good. That's the good thing, right? There's nothing at risk. It doesn't have to be good. We're just going to try something out. If it works, great. If it doesn't, nothing lost, eh? You'll learn something, that's for sure. Okay, so what we're going to do, please stay in your seat for the moment. I'll tell you when to get up. So once again, just giving these two gentlemen the example. So this gentleman would pitch his opening 3 sentences, and then the other gentleman is going to give bit feedback. Is it professional? And does it make me want to know more? Has it caught my attention? And the third thing is there a friendly piece of advice for making it better? Notice the word friendly. That's important, huh? That's important because, you know, presenting to people is really vulnerable. It's one of people's biggest fears because you feel judgment as soon as you start speaking. That's why it's so important to try out the opening, because you want to get used to that voice that starts saying, this is what you should say something different. Why did you say that? You want to get that out. So start to say your stuff out loud. And so if you think there's something that could be improved, tell them this was really good, but what you could also say is such and such. You know, the type of feedback you give will make a difference. Okay, so you're going to do this in pairs. So once again, please stand up. Same process. You have 5 minutes for both people to pitch, okay? 5 minutes for both people to pitch. So switch after 2.5 minutes. If you haven't got a partner, hand up. If you can't find somebody, just team up with someone else. I'll set the clock going in just a moment. If you're not teamed up in a pair, just join another one. You can do it as a 3. And away we go. Give it a shot. Oops. Okay, time is up, ladies and gentlemen. Time is up. Take your seats. So, let me tell you what we've been doing here. There's two things that you've been doing with this exercise. The first one is, of course, you're testing out, does the opening of your pitch work? Does it sound good to you? Does it sound good to them? And what kind of feedback do you get? But the second thing is you're going through a process which you can apply to any part of any presentation or pitch in the future. And that process is something we just don't do when we prepare presentations. It's think it through, write it down, say it out loud, and get feedback. You see, if I look back on the 1,000 plus presentations that I made in Canon, what I did was I sat in a corner and I worked on my slides. And I worked on them, and at best, I asked somebody maybe half an hour before the presentation, what do you think? And if they said, well, that bit isn't really understandable, I said, yes, it is, and I would present it anyway. All right? Now, what I learned is that if you're collaborative in preparing presentations, you get different points of view. And by saying it out loud, the first thing is you give yourself feedback. You say it out loud and you think, well, hang on a minute, I wouldn't say that. If I was having a coffee with somebody, I wouldn't say that. What would I actually say? And then you find your words. The second thing that happens is you say it to someone else and you get feedback. They tell you, well, I didn't understand this. I didn't get that. Or this didn't make so much sense. And then you can find out why. And you can see, okay, maybe I should change this. What we tend to do is just make the slides present. But give yourself an opportunity, especially for the important parts of a pitch, the opening and anything that is new, anything you're not so comfortable with. Just get somebody to spend a few minutes with you, say, hey, I just want to try out this part of my pitch. Can you have a listen? Give me some feedback. And you'll always get a different point of view. So following this process, like you've just done, writing it down, saying it out loud, and getting feedback, this will help you raise the quality of every pitch you do. Now, the third tool is all about making your story focused and understandable. And it's using the power of three. Now, I mentioned that I'm addicted to the power of three. I believe that the power of three is a way to make things easier to understand. But I also know it's true because there's some science that shows the brain receives information in threes very comfortably. We like threes. Three's the smallest number with a bit of complexity. So it feels like there's a bit of depth to it, but it's not overwhelming. You know, for example, if someone says to you, I've got 11 things I want to tell you about this product. How do you feel? Not great, right? Your brains are collectively saying, oh, no. Whereas, if someone says, there's many things I could tell you about this, but I've broken it down to the three most important, here's the first. Your brain says, really? Oh, fabulous, because I thought this was complicated. Oh, three? Bring it on, give me the three. So threes are really powerful. But, you know, I know threes are powerful as well because the threes are in the air. It's ready, steady, go. Lights, camera, action. Veni, vidi, vici. The Three Musketeers, bronze, silver, and gold. Beginning, middle, end. I mean, how many nephews does Donald Duck have? Is it 2? Is it 4? No, it's 3, right? 3. In English, it's Huey, Dewey, and Louie. In Dutch, where I live in Netherlands, Quick, Quack, and Quack. I'm not sure what it is in your language, but yeah, it's 3, right? Why is it 3? It's because it's for kids. And kids can't remember stuff. They don't understand complex things. And what are we? We're just grown-up kids with more things going on. So power of 3 can really help you. But the question is, how do you use it? How do you use the power of 3? So there's a couple of things you can do. I've already given you the idea that you just break things down into 3 big qualities. You don't tell them 11 things or 9. Tell them 3 big things. For example, it's faster, it's lower cost, and it's so much easier to use. And then you explain why. So these are the 3 headlines, and then you give them the explanation of each of those things. But these are the 3 things you want them to remember. Then you could look at your whole pitch. 3 big chapters. You could say, we've identified a problem a lot of customers have. We've come up with a product that is going to solve it, and we've got a team behind it that will help you implement this, for example. So think about how could you break your story into 3 big pillars so that people can absorb it. It gives them something to hold on to, a kind of a structure. They know what's coming, and then they see it as it comes. So power of 3 can be really helpful. And finally, you can give them some signposts. You know, you could say to them, as I mentioned earlier, there's so many things I could tell you about this subject, but there's 3 things I want you to remember about our business. Here's the first, and you're guaranteed to have people's attention. Because what you say is, this is a complex world, it's a complex story, and the brain says, I don't like complexity. And then you say, but I've broken it down to 3, and the brain says, 3, fabulous. And then you tell them, here's the first, and they say, I better pay attention. So this is how it works. You give them signposts that says, you need to listen to this bit. So find your own way of giving these signposts so that people know which are the important things. You know, in the pitch that I showed you, the enthusiastic guy, through that pitch, he tells you this, and he tells you that, and he tells you this, and then at a certain moment he says, but you know, the really important thing about this is, and you can feel that the audience is like, what is it? Because he said, the really important thing is. So he brings your attention to a point. So not everything can be important. Only some things can be important. When it's a really important thing, just tell them. Okay, now we're not going to do an exercise on this one, but I just wanted to suggest to you what you can do for every pitch that you ever do. Just before you go, just think, what are the 3 things that I want them to remember? And write it down. The power of thinking it through and writing it down, this will massively increase the chance that they're more likely to remember it. So before you go for a pitch, just write down the 3 big things. Think to yourself, if they only remember 3 things, what do I want those 3 things to be? And that's another way you can use the power of 3. Now, we're going to put this together. I'm going to give you a power of 3 challenge. And we're going to do a little 3-sentence pitch. I want to try out your own power of 3 pitch. And again, the content, I'm going to give you some guidance on the content, but you know, make it practical to you. Make it something that might be actually useful for you in your working life. But what I suggest is that you tell, what do you do for which kinds of customers? What problems do those customers face? And what's unique about how you solve those problems? It's a bit more about yourself. This is what you might call the handshake pitch. The moment when someone says, so what do you do? You know, I go to a lot of network events as a freelancer, and I ask people, what do you do? And there's 2 things that happen. One is they say, here's what I do this and that, I also do this, I also do this, this and this, oh, by the way, I also do this, and I do this, and I do this, 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 and this. And after 5 minutes, I say, thanks very much, and go and talk to somebody else. Because they told me everything, so I have no questions left. And they've also said, I'm not interested in you. So why would you want to have a connection? Then the other thing that happens is you say, what do you do? And they say, yeah, what do I do? Well, I do a lot of things. Well, let me see how I can explain. It's a bit complicated, but I'll try. Now, how do you feel on the other side? Do you think, oh, great, I'm delighted. I haven't got any complication in my life. Let's see if we can solve yours. I'm really happy about that. Or do you think, oh, God, this will take forever? So I don't blame people who have those introductions because we've never really had a moment to think. If someone says, what do I do? What am I going to say? You might have this many, many times over the years. So I want to give you this framework. So let's do this exercise where I'm going to give you 3 minutes to prepare this 20-second pitch. It's 3 sentences. If it takes a bit longer than 20 seconds, it's also fine. And I'm not so strict. So if it ends up being 4 sentences, it's also okay. But the idea is to keep it compact. Keep it short. 3 or 4 sentences and around 20, maximum 30 seconds. Because people don't have more time. They don't want it more complex. So I'll give you 3 minutes to think it through and write it down. And then once again, we'll stand up, we'll try it out, and after that, we'll wrap up with a quick thing on how to manage your nerves. Okay, so first part, 3 minutes to prepare. If anybody has any questions, they're not sure what to do, you can just put your hand up, I'll come and talk to you. And in between times, once again, a bit of music for you. By the way, customers could be internal customers, could be external, it could be other departments, it could be many things. So just think about who you serve, who are you helping, and position them as the customers. You know the drill. Before you stand up, so what we're going to do is once again, one person pitches and the other person gives feedback. And the feedback is which one thing stood out. So once again, you would pitch and then this gentleman would tell, what is the one thing that stood out? What caught my attention? What surprised me? What was the thing that I will most likely remember? So which one thing stood out? And then, was there one thing that you didn't understand? Was it an idea? Was it an acronym? Was it a key word? Was it all three sentences? Could be, you never know. Which one thing which did I not understand? And once again, if there's a piece of friendly advice to help it be better, then by all means give that advice. So let's stand up and we'll give it a shot. Team up with somebody, doesn't have to be the same person, can be. It's up to you, be flexible. If you're missing somebody, put your hand up. And you can always team up with a third person. And the clock is ticking. 5 minutes for both pitches, all right? Both pitches and feedback. Oh, she looks happy.
talked about the video being available afterwards, also the presentation, or would you rather not have that?
Not the whole thing, but I can share some. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, let's take a seat and let's wrap up in the last 5 minutes. Take your seats. So once again, you feel the power of think it through, write it down, say it out loud, and get feedback. You can improve the quality of your pitches by doing this simple exercise. And you can do it with any pitch, and you can do it with any part of a pitch. But this will really help you. Now, There's one more thing that people find really difficult with pitching. Does anybody get nervous when they have to pitch or present? Put your hand up if you get nervous if you pitch or present. Yeah. I've asked over 4,000 people this question now, and 90% of people put their hands up. Doesn't matter if they're senior executives or young founders of startups, it's always the same. And so what I've done is I've prepared something to help you manage your nerves. I've got a video course, which I decided to give to you for free, because this is something that I would really like people to be able to do. And there's a bunch of tools. They're practical things that you can actually do. It's not just theory about why you do find out why you get nervous, but they're practical tools. And I want to give you the first of those tools briefly, and then you can find out the rest in the course. And the first of those tools is very simple. It's learn the first 60 seconds. See, when you stand up here, you have a fight or flee mechanism. You are one, they are many. And in caveman times, that means you're going to get eaten or beaten, one or the other. So what did we do to survive? We developed instinct, which gave us fight or flee. We get a whole bunch of adrenaline in the body, we get ready to go, and a bit of the brain disconnects. That's exactly what happens when you stand up in front of an audience, even an audience of 2. And the way to overcome this is to get the first 60 seconds so rock solid that no matter what happens, you can deliver those first 60 seconds, because that is the platform for the rest of your pitch and the rest of your presentation. I've asked so many people, what was it like the first 60 seconds of your pitch? And they say, it was like an out-of-body experience. I said things I didn't mean to say. I did things I didn't mean to do. I don't remember what I said. These are quite common things. Now, the rest is on here. So if you're interested to take the course, it's an online course. It's completely free. This is the short code. I think the code will be shared with you as well. So if you want to take a photograph, feel free. And you just have to go there. It'll take you about 20 to 30 minutes to go through the course. And I think it's 20, 30 minutes well invested. So do access the course. It's completely free for you. And I just want to recap. So what are the 3 big tools? The first one is, how do you create your storyline? You do it with Post-it notes. Use Post-it notes to build your story, and this will save you 20 to 30% of time and raise quality. The second thing is make the first word count. Open powerfully. Make the first sentence count. Have a plan for what you're going to say at the very beginning and answer those 2 questions. Is this person professional? Do I want or need to know more? And the third thing, predictably, so the first 20 seconds is about buying attention. And the third thing, predictably, is about making your story focused and memorable. It's the power of 3. Now, to wrap up, I'm going to give you an app. It has a whole bunch of stuff in it, including 3 cards, their digital format, 5 steps to preparing your winning pitch, 5 biggest mistakes to avoid, 5 ways to manage your nerves. Normally somebody says, what do you mean 5? Don't you mean 3? There are 3. 1, 2, 3. So got answer for everything. I'm Pitch Coach. And the app is called Pitch Professional. And it's on iOS and Google Play. It doesn't do anything except give you content. So you'll find some pitch examples, pitch tips, you'll find an explanation of the pitch canvas and digital versions of all the stuff that I've been mentioning. And yeah, you get me on your phone. How great is that? So do feel free to download it. A couple of people have asked me, if I download it, do you track my movements? Or will you sell my data? I said, I don't know how to do any of that. I'm just a pitch coach. So download it, get the stuff, and then take it off. So ladies and gentlemen, it was a real pleasure to be here. You may have noticed a funny shoe. I actually have a broken foot right now. It broke my foot 2 weeks ago, but I was so determined to come here because I really want to share this stuff. I have a big mission to help 1 million people to do this thing called pitching and be able to do it better and more confidently. And so this is one of the steps to do it. So ladies and gentlemen, feel free to connect with me on LinkedIn. You can find more information at pitchprofessionals.com. I'm on Twitter at pitchprof. Ladies and gentlemen, my name's David Beckett. I'm a pitch coach, here to ensure your ideas have a voice. Thank you.
Stay there, David. Stay there. Fantastic. Thank you so much. I'm sure everyone is going to take something from that, and everyone was clicking the screen. But of course, a lot of those elements have been on show with me for the last 2 days already, as they've witnessed. David, we haven't got any time for questions because we're actually overrunning slightly. But what I'd like to do is say thank you again, and we have a gift we've given all our speakers. And you've had one of our speakers earlier today had a baby yesterday, and you've had a broken foot, so we've all got little dramas with our guest speakers. But this is a book about Swedish fika.
Great.
Which is a very popular tradition here.
Fantastic.
And it's in English, so you'll be fine. And enjoy it, and hopefully you can bake at the weekend. But again, a round of applause for David.
Thank you. Thanks. Thank you very much.